This call is now being recorded.
समस्तंको नमस्कार. This is good morning to all in this platform. At the outset, we just pray in the name of the Lord. Thank you all. Once again, all are welcome to this platform. Different corner of the state and country, the academicians, the research scholars, and educationists who are joined with us this one day workshop. Here with our experts, academicians, a man who is with the society, serving the society, Dr. Minaketan Behera sir, professor from JNU. The organizing people who are with us, the General Secretary, who is also General Secretary of Swami Vivekananda Lok Sanchad, Odisha, as well as he is currently serving as Professor Gurudas Vishwavidyalaya, Bilaspur, Chhattisgarh, Professor Chitranjan Naik sir, all the peoples from different corner who are joined with us this one day national workshop on two key aspects. One is how to write research proposal as well as how to prepare and the PhD interview. On this aspect, the 3-hour sessions will be continued. Before we start that, I request Ms. Susri Pragya Raut, a scholar and also associated with this Vivekananda Yuva Sansad, to just sing a song before the Lord, supported with Vivek Bani of Swami Vivekananda. Then we start the proceedings. Now I request Susri, just start.
Good morning, everyone. Guru Govindo Hari Kakela Bali Hari Govind Diyo Bata Kabira Govind Diyo Bata ऐसी वाणी बोलिए मन का और को शीतल करिए अब शीतल हो कबीरा अब शीतल हो बुरा जो देखने में चला बुरा ना मिलिया जो मन खोजा अपना मुझसे बुरा ना कोई कबीरा मुझसे बुरा ना कोई कल करे सो आज कर आज करे सो अब पल में परल होगी बहुरी करोगे कब कबीरा बहुरी करोगे कब पोथी पढ़ जगमुआ पंडित भयान को ढाई अक्षर प्रेम के पढ़े सो पंडित होय कबीरा, पढ़े सो पंडित होय. Thank you. Vivek Vani by Swami Vivekananda. No life will be a failure. There is no such thing as failure in the universe. 100 times man will hurt himself. 1,000 times he will tumble. But in the end, he will realize that he is himself the God. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pragya. Nicely, you dedicated this line before all the audience, all the academicians, all the research scholars who are with us. So this is the initiative by Moga Education Council, who is the part of Swami Vivekananda Lok Sanchad. The main purpose is just to serve the society, to reach before the need, and this is particularly a non-profitable and a society to serve the needs. Here with us, our General Secretary, Professor Chittaranjan Naik sir, who is serving presently as professor at Gurdas Vishwavidyalaya, Bilaspur, Chhattisgarh. He is a man behind many success. He is a man who led the success of also many peoples. He always tried to get the need of others. He is the man behind inspiration of many academicians. Now I request Professor Chittaranjan sir to just share his own words regarding the organization and the present topic for before the audience. Professor Chittaranjan Naik sir.
Thank you, Dr. Pradipta Sarangi, the in charge of communication wing of Moga Shiksha Parishad, respected Professor Minaketan Behera, and all the fellow participants. I see so many scholars, academicians, students across the country have joined. So this is a great pleasure for us. So on behalf of the organization, Swami Vivekananda Loka Sangsad and its constituent unit, Moga, and Moga Shiksha Parishad is a constituent unit of Moga Trust. So on behalf of all these organizations, I welcome you all heartily. Friends, this is not the first endeavor. We are actually in the process. Every month, such type of programs are being organized, and I must express my sense of gratitude, sense of appreciation to Professor Minaketan Behera, who always leads from the front. Dr. Sadangi always executes with his minute observations. He devotes all his experiences to make these programs successful. Dr. Minaketan will tell you how to write a research proposal and how to structure one research, all these kind of things. But I will tell you something about the organization, because sometimes we forget about the pain and sacrifice of people who think something for the society and who contribute their might in a selfless manner. Swami Vivekananda Loka Sangsad is actually till now an Odisha-based organization. It started in a village in Bhadrak district of Odisha long back in 1989. by young children, students who were in their 10th or 12th classes like that. After that, in 2011, 2012 actually, when the country was celebrating the 150th birth anniversary of Swami Vivekananda, the organization expanded to the state of Odisha. And in the last 10 years, it has spread to all the districts across the state. All the 30 districts, Odisha has 30 districts, and the organization has units in all these 30 districts. And we are focusing on 6 different areas. And for each area, we have a forum to plan and execute. Um, we have an intellectual forum in the name of Vicharadhara. So that brings people together and engage them intellectually with some developmental, spiritual, and organizational agenda. In all the 30 districts, we organize something known as Patha Chakra, e-Patha Chakra, virtual Patha Chakra, study circle. Every day from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m., one district presents, followed by another, and all the 30 districts in all the 30 days. All Patha Chakras are organized in one particular link. Our day actually starts with awakening with Bhagavad Gita. So every day, that's a flagship program of our intellectual forum. So every day from 5:30 to 6:30, early morning, we organize one program, Awakening with Bhagavad Gita. The morning program is organized in one particular link, and the evening program is also organized in one particular link. So if you have that link, you can join if it interests you. We completed the Awakening with Bhagavad Gita in the English medium, then from the Kumar Purnima, which will also continue for 1 year. So that now we are doing it in Sanskrit. After that, Odia, Hindi. So languages will change, but the program will continue. Our Vichardhara that I was talking about, that is our intellectual forum. Then we are having another forum known as Utkal Kala or Sanskriti Pratishthan, which is devoted in the field of art and culture. So it has wings of visual art, folk art, then fine art, all those kind of branches are there in our Utkal Kala or Sanskriti Pratishthan. We are also having a youth unit in the name of Vivekananda Yuva Sansad. And I see so many functionaries of Vivekananda Yuva Sansad in this platform too. So they are young, they are energetic, they are scholars, they are teachers, so below 35 years of age. So they are leading our youth activities. And recently, they also led us to organize Swami Vivekananda Jayanti in all the 30 districts. I think around, the meeting was organized in around 60 places. So that is the volume and intensity of their activity. And apart from that, they are also leading some social enterprises. Then we are having one communication wing in the name of Samparka Setu, that is to act as a forum of organizations. So many social organizations, like-minded organizations will come together, express their ideas, and explore possibilities of working together for our beloved society. So that is also there. I should not lengthen my elaboration because we know the session will be quite productive. And this forum, which is organizing, this is known as MOGA. So MOGA means, that is in Odia, the term is in Odia. In English, you can say that's my village. So, what is the importance of a village in Indian society? It was not just Gandhiji has realized it, but we all realize that how important is a village for our development. So MOGA has 4 specific concerns. Jia, please mute yourself. Yeah, thank you. Moga has 4 constituents. One is Health Forum. Moga Health Council is working in the field of health, and the Moga Environment Council is there. Moga Empowerment, that also includes training. So that council is working, and we are assembled here on the edges of Moga Shiksha Parishad, the Education Council. And all these councils are offering at least one program in a month. The first week of the month is reserved for the activity of Moga Shiksha Parishad, which is led by no other than our beloved Professor Minaketan Behera. He is the convener of this program. So this is a wonderful opportunity to welcome my esteemed friend, Dr. and younger brother, Dr. Minaketan Behera, who is doing this work selflessly, bringing like-minded people together to deliver something for our young scholars, for our young faculty members and students who are in their senior stage, and they are struggling to write a proposal, find a good institution, explore some funding. So for them, this workshop will be of immense help and use. So Professor Behera is now working in Jawaharlal Nehru University, and before that, he was working in Ambedkar University, New Delhi. Before that, he was working in Amity University. Before that, he was working in A.N. Sinha Institute in Bihar. So, is a massively experienced, traveled a lot, is a trainer, a motivator, and most importantly, he's a dedicated soul who always uh, takes pleasure whenever whenever he does something for the society, for others. So, with these words, I welcome Professor Behera. I also welcome all our beloved participants, and I expect that when the time will be off, then there will be some value addition in your learning. You will have some pleasure. And friends, sometimes you ask for certificates, all those kind of things, but normally we don't have that provision. We don't uh, value much that somebody will participate for certificate sake. So no query need to be entertained regarding that. Please take the session, enjoy the learning, and make some value addition to your stock of knowledge and expertise. That is the wish, that is our desire, and we apologize that we cannot find time, or we do not have that set of provision to give you certificates. Anyway, so it is over to Professor Behera. Uh, I express my satisfaction, and I wish all success of this activity, this workshop. Over to Professor Behera. If Pradipta Bhai has anything to say, Pradipta Bhai can say. Otherwise, it is over to Professor Behera.
Yeah.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Chita Bhai. Good morning to everyone. Am I audible? I hope I am audible.
Yes,
Yes, sir. Yes.
This slide is visible or slide is not visible?
It's visible.
Okay, I do not. You just, yeah. Also, good morning all. So don't think that, yeah.
Slide is not visible. Slide.
Just look at it now. It is visible.
Slide is visible. Will you change it? The first one. Just
No,
try
sir.
the
Slide is
change.
not visible.
Okay. Again, I am sharing. Just a minute. Just a minute. Entertain. Slide is not visible. Don't write. Now allow. Just look at it. Now it is visible.
No.
Yes, sir.
Huh?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
Just
Yes,
changing.
sir.
Changing. Yeah. You. Good morning, all. So do one thing. So don't think that whatever my practical experience is there. So many people demand on this issue. So I thought that I should speak on this. So remember one thing. So my request, those who are here, so please do one thing. So whatever the questions that you have, so you just write down in the chat box. So I will try my best after these two lectures. I will try my best to clarify that whatever the question that you have. Remember one thing, so my dear friends, so my request to everyone, these are the set of the books that I have given. Please, at least it is free of cost. You can download from the internet. If you want to develop yourself in this area, in my understanding, if you go for the basic understanding, all the 10 books and each chapter, please go through it, download these books and read it. It is very, very essential if you go for this, all these books that I have given. So you will find it is written, many thousands of books are available, but my understanding of these books, please just download from the internet. So it is free of cost. You can download and just go through it. This is my first intake. Okay, so if you are not, those who are here not able to get these books, please write individually through my email ID. I will share this soft copy of these books. I have all the soft copy of the books, but it is a big one, but you can download yourself. You know, nowadays it is free of, you can download everywhere. Okay, so this is the general thing that you have to keep in mind.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, we are unable to see the book list.
This slide is not visible.
Sir,
Sir,
we are
slide is
unable to
available.
see the book list. We are unable to see.
Slide change.
I am not able to. You just the list is not available.
The first slide is there.
Yes, sir. Slide is visible, sir. You need to work at that.
It is to move.
Yeah, slide is
Yeah,
okay.
this is the main. You just, because I'm not able to see anyone. I just show the slide, maximum slide. The front full. Okay, you are.
The-
Yeah,
no,
I'm
you are
the
at the
first
first
slide.
slide. Yes, that's
Yeah.
visible. No problem.
So you please, so those who are after the class, maybe you just write down the mail. So if possible, I will share the book, although you can download this one. Remember one
Sir,
thing.
please turn on the slide share mode, so that it can be like bigger picture we can see. It's not in slide share mode now.
Just look at it. I have.
You know, the slide was visible, sir, but it needs to be in slide share mode.
Slide share mode, enter screen, Windows screen, meet, enter screens. So I am just look, allow notification sharing.
सर
Now
सर
just
वो F5 दबाइए सर, स्लाइड शेयर हो जाएगा.
तो दोबारा ये तो एक slide. This is from my side. This is a slide. Now it is visible. This
No,
slide,
sir,
full
it-
slide.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It is visible. It is visible. Continue now.
Okay, now one thing. So remember one thing. This is the first that you have to very clear on this. That remember one thing. Those who are teachers, those who are students here, please write the 3 questions before you start your research work. So I hope I'm not giving that much emphasis on this. You just one thing. You the order that you have to keep in mind. Most of the students, I remember, so they do not know the order of the questions. If you go for, you just ask 3 questions to yourself. The question why, the question what, the question how. Your research proposal, that we call as your synopsis or your PhD thesis, is totally based on these 3 questions. If you go for in your research language, so you just whatever the word, the question why. So the question why is,
slide.
huh?
Slide, please change your slide.
No need of change slide. The slide is visible or not?
Sir, only
The
first
slide
slide
is
is visible.
visible.
Then we are unable to see other slides.
no need of other slides. I am showing the question, the beginning of the research proposal slide. Is it not visible?
No, sir, not visible.
Sir, what we are, yes, it's
now it is
visible now.
visible.
We have to
Now
change
Now
the
it's
right
visible.
picture.
Now,
Friends, please have patience. So the introduction is going on. So you need not disturb the speaker always. It is quite visible. Please manage.
okay, so
Please
remember,
continue.
yeah, you remember one thing. So your research proposal is that if you go for this slide that here, so you yourself ask these questions. Any research, why I am doing, what I want to find out, and how I will find out. So basically, remember one thing. If you go for these three questions, your research proposal or your PhD thesis is totally based on this. And if you go for in your research language, the question is nothing but your statement of problem. The question what is nothing but your objective of your study. And the question how is nothing your methodology of research. So remember one thing, those who are now you are the students, but after some point of time you will be teacher. So remember one thing, many times I ask these three questions to students. So you have to ask yourself the order, the question. Okay, so many times people confuse, say how, then stay what, then last why. No, the question order that you have to keep in mind, and the research language, their meaning is written in the bracket. You just go through. If you have any questions, then you will ask me. So if you go for now, the slide is changing.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
If you go for, generally we write your research proposal that I try to emphasize on the academic, that only for MA dissertation, your MPhil dissertation, your PhD thesis, that the synopsis that we are now emphasis on this fact. There is also another, this research proposal, generally we use for the funding. You talk about Indian Council of Social Science Research, you talk about Ministry of Tribal Affairs, you talk about UGC, different funding agencies are there. Also so you have to submit a proposal for funding. So I will try. So those who will ask me question the difference, so I will ask. Remember one thing, if you are writing a academic synopsis or academic proposal, and if you are writing a proposal for funding as a teacher, remember one thing, the basic difference between the two, you will find, just look at it. So if you go for, the slide is visible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just write down, just write down, please, just write down. So if you go for, remember one thing, if you just look at it, this is not the final and everywhere we are following. This is tentatively everywhere in every university. Generally, we are following this pattern. So remember one thing. So if you are, so this is I'm talking about, if you go for, this is the academic research proposal. Most of this is the essential condition that you have to write for your PhD, for your MPhil, for your MA. Okay, now also most of the university in the graduation level, also they have a project, they are also doing this thing. Remember one thing, I think it is one of the most important factors that many of the students do not know how to write these things. Why I'm telling these things, the last time when if you go for now after MA, those who are students are coming for their PhD program, so they do not have any idea about the research proposal. So remember one thing, when you are writing your research proposal, so maybe 15 to 20 pages or 15 pages. So broadly, you have to write this content. Okay, so this you just, if you go for, you just look at it. These three questions that I say, the question why, the question what, the question how. All these three questions, if you go for, remember, just write down this point in your notebook. Okay, so I will explain with example on this point. Please, if you have any questions, just write down in the chat box. I will try my best to answer all these things. So now I say, so if you go for, like you just look at it, this you have to provide first point, that's the cover page. I will explain detail, the cover page or the title and cover page. Then broadly, if you go for, generally we write introductions or background. Okay, so I will explain each term detail, and then you will go for your review of literature, then you will go for your statement of problem. Many people write, there is a term before, if you go for objective of the study, research questions. Okay, so you can write research questions, you can, after that you can write objective of the study. So that is your choice, according to supervisor will determine. Okay, then you will find your hypothesis of the study. Remember one thing, all this, if you go for this point, the address question of why and what. I will explain detail. If you go for the question how, so you just look at it, these materials and methods. Okay, so if you go for just look at it, so you have to talk about within these materials and methods. So you have to, then generally that we call as a methodology. So we write down the research design. In methodology, we write down the study area, we write down the sampling procedure, then we write down sample size, then we write down sources of data, then we write down these tools of data collections, then we write down data analysis. Okay, so and then you have the tentative chapters, you can write that, or you can you write down the relevance of the proposed study, then you write down your tentative chapter plans, and then you know the reference. This is the, remember one thing, most of the university, generally we follow this pattern. Some, accordingly, some variations are there on the basis of discipline. So you will find some university, some variations are there. So please, so you just don't think that this is only the way that I am speaking, so you have to follow this pattern. No. Okay, so you generally, most of the university, we are following this pattern. So if you go for now, my question was that, so you just remember now, so this is the proposal or the synopsis, because many students do not know that there is a difference between the proposal we are writing for the funding and there is proposal we are writing for the academic. So remember one thing for the timing. So in research proposal for funding and research proposal for your academic, that MPhil, now MPhil is no more. So MA, MPhil, PhD. So if you go for everything, all the point that is shown here, so is same, but the time and budget. So only two components, remember one thing, the time and budget is not in case of your academic proposal. Everything, only all the point, besides that, if you go for after your relevance of the study, so there is the timeline. I will explain after the class. So I have prepared, so this slide is there, and the budget, where that it is for this your funding. Okay, so this is the, remember one thing, this is the difference between academic proposal and your this proposal that we're talking about. Okay, I hope you have written this in your any plain paper. So I will explain. So I will say, if you just look at it. So now, so if you go for, remember one thing. So if you are, so first point is that if you are writing a proposal, a synopsis, remember one thing, most of the students, they do not know that you should write a cover page. This cover page is very, very essential that you have to. So remember one thing, in the cover page, so you just look at it, the sample that I have given one cover page. So you just look at it. So you have to provide first now your research proposal on, okay, so the title of your research proposal or title of your PhD thesis or your title of your synopsis. Okay, so you have to write down. Then you have to write down, okay, so your basically, so whom you are. This is a PhD synopsis, you write down, you just, so you provide yourself. Okay, so whom you are submitting. So you are submitting to Jawaharlal Nehru University. You are submitting to Banaras Hindu University. Okay, so where you have to submit. So, and you have to provide your name, your roll number, your so everything that you have to keep in mind when you are writing. And also nowadays you have to then remember one thing. So all this pointer, so you have to write maybe. So if your supervisor is allotted, then you write your supervisor name. If your RSC members, now remember one thing, after 2018 UGC guideline, so there is a research advisory committee, RAC. So if also you can write down their names because this is now mandatory. So before your synopsis to be passed in the university, so you have to first submit your synopsis to your RSC member. I hope most of the university, so you know, so the two RSC members are there in besides, okay, your supervisor. So you know these things. So this is the cover page. Most of the students do not do this. So my request to everyone that when you are writing this, okay, if you are writing also term paper, the MS students, those who are here, they don't write their names, no topic, only 10 pages they are submitting to their the subject coordinator. Okay, so remember one thing, whenever anything you are writing, the cover page must be there. Now remember one thing, this is very, very essential when you are writing your PhD thesis. Remember one thing, you write a title in such a manner, okay, you just read all the points. That should be clear, that should be concise, that should be catchy. Okay, so that should be short. Many students, I my own experience having gone through this, the different, the RSC members and the PhD synopsis confirmations. So I find, so they have written, they have not clarity when they write their PhD title of their thesis. So remember one thing, so you have to write your title of a thesis in such a manner that maybe, so the others, whenever look at your title, so they may be very excited to look at your, so, okay, what is there in the thesis? Okay, so you have to, whenever you are writing, so you have to keep in mind. Remember one thing, I always say here that please, those who I hope maximum students are joining this program, so you don't ask your supervisor that please tell me a topic, sir, on which topic I will work. Please don't do that. Don't do that. Don't ask any supervisor कि मुझे topic बता दीजिए, I will work on this. Please don't do that. Remember one thing, that is the first and important point that you have to keep in mind. You work on your self-interest, that on area that we have on this, you are thinking on that. And also you have to take in other dimensions, maybe I will explain detail whenever you go. So you have to read this, all the points that I'm sharing. So you have to, the title is very, very essential because you know, if once you have written your title, and if the title is confusing, and if you pass in a CSR, so it is confirmed, then in some extent it is difficult to change after some point of time. So remember one thing, whenever you are writing a PhD thesis, maybe, so you talk to your supervisor, you talk to your RSC member, you talk to your other friends. And also nowadays, remember one thing. So most of in this information technology, all these teachers, those who are expert in this area, in the topic that you are working, please write them. Okay, they will provide a good understanding. Maybe it will take some time, 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 4 day. You just politely write a mail. That's this is my topic. Maybe so you can get feedback from this topic. Okay, so this is the something about the title that you have to keep in mind. Now, so if you go for the first point, just look at please. So the slide is changing. I hope so. Is it okay? The slide is
Yes, sir.
yeah. So remember one thing, because I'm not able to see anyone. So there are many students. Are they in University of Hyderabad? So I, as a student of University of Hyderabad, we generally start with your statement of problem. But I always say the student, okay, many people, so you should write down this background. You should start with your introduction. So remember one thing, what you have to provide on any topic that you are working. Okay, so you have to just sit together. So you just think, so suppose I am working on tribals, I am working on Monrega, I am working on poverty, I am working on child labor. So any development, I am working on migration. Okay, so it is your duty that you just provide a understanding. You just look at the point that whatever written. If you have any questions, then you will ask me. So any topic you are writing, in the introduction part, you just provide a general information. Then maybe some theory or exist. Basically, you just write down theoretical understanding, the topic that you are working. So you provide, okay, so overview of the theoretical understanding, okay, on the topic that you are interested to work. Okay, so you suppose any topic you want, you just provide some background, some theoretical background in the first part of your synopsis. Clear? So now, if you go for now the first point, the introduction is, if you can write 1 pages, you can write 1.5 pages. Okay, so that is your choice, but you have to provide the substantial information on the relevance or the statistics, everything that you have to provide in your background, any topic you are working. Okay, so you have to keep in mind when you are writing this. Then the second part, that is, if you go for, so most of the cases, remember one thing, so I say that you have to keep in mind when you go for this before if you go for, then I say that we should write the statement of problem. Remember one thing, if you go for the statement of problem, so mostly you will find that most of the cases that many students do not know that they should write their research gap. Please, my request to everyone, I asked in the interview board that please tell me what is your research gap. If you are not able to provide your research gap, that means you do not know anything about your research work. I found my own experience, most of the students, what they did, they say that, remember one thing, only geographical factor as the difference of the research gap. Okay, so you have to keep in mind that when you are writing, if you want to identify your research problem, remember one thing, that I have used in this word, if you have written, the statement of problem. Okay, so this statement of problem, you will identify only when you have gone through the literature. Okay, I know most of these things. In the interview board, remember one thing, you have to keep in mind. So we generally ask, suppose you are working on poverty, you are working on child labor, you are working on migration, you are working on informal sector workers, you are working on street vendors. So if your proposal is like this, so the first questions generally we ask, this is my personal opinion. So you will find that generally we ask, how, just tell me 5 authors, those who are, or 6 authors, they are working in this topic. And what is their findings? What is their methodology? What is their policy implications? Okay, so everything, so in the PhD interview or any interview, so you have to very clear on this. Because I remember the last time, so we suppose someone is working on gender. So I say, tell me those 5 name those who are in India in academics. So have you gone through their literature? They are working on this gender or your unpaid work. So if you do not know, that means it shows you have not gone to the literature. So my request to everyone, so you have to very clear on your review of literature part. I know this is the real sense, it is a very difficult, because most of the students, if you are not going to the review of literature, interesting part, if you go for most of the students, they don't write review of literature. What they write abstract of the article. Remember one thing, most of the, I found, they have, if your supervisor is telling that, Jao, just do the review of literature. So remember one thing, so what people are doing, they are only writing, they just go to the Google Scholar or download 20, 30 articles, and they are writing the abstract of this review of literature. Okay, so remember one thing, if you as a student, if you are writing, okay, so this is not, you have to keep in mind, because if you are not clear on this review of literature, that I am again and again emphasizing, this research gap. Okay, so you have to identify your research gap first. So how you will identify research gap? I will come to this point. Remember one thing. So you know review of literature. What do you mean by review of literature? So remember one thing. So on the area that you are planning to work or you want to work in this area, so how many other people they are working in that area? What is their methodology? What is their objective? What is their broad findings? What is their study area? So all the information you collect together, and remember one thing, it is not your duty that what they have done, what they have not done, it is your responsibility. That is your research gap. Because remember one thing, if you will not go to the review of literature, so because time is short, so I am not able to give much time on this, because this is a one section on the review of literature. So if you go for the book list that I have provided, every book that you will find review of literature with example. Please, so if you go for, my request is that in terms of review of literature, at least, okay, so in review of literature, you provide national, international, and okay, so you have to arrange maybe, so what is the latest? Okay, so you from, suppose after independence, you are providing literature on that. Okay, so so you have to very clear on this when, so you are writing. Most of the students nowadays, remember one thing, when you write something, review of literature, remember you have to keep in mind that after you write your literature review, in the last paragraph of all this national, international, whatever the article, books, report that is in your area, when you review it, in clearly last paragraph of your research work, you clearly write down that having gone through the literature, so my study is different from other study is as follows. That paragraph should be there. Believe me, most of the students, they do not know about this. Okay, so you have to thousands times you have to ask again and again. Okay, so to identify your research gap, because your research gap will provide you understanding the statement of problem. The research gap will provide you to your research question. Your research gap will provide you research objective. Your research will provide you your hypothesis. So everything. So you have to very clear on that, this review part that you, so now I have many other slides. So you just look at it. So I hope if you go for, so you just go through it. So I hope this slide is visible. I have explained. So three issues. So you have to keep in mind when you are review of literature, please write down. Write down. They are not as the abstract of the article or conclusion of the article. You have to critically, if you go for, I hope you just look at it. This slide is visible.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
But this is available in different. So you just read. Yeah. So all the point that is given nowadays, it is very easy to get the materials if you go for now for the research work. In our time, it's different. Now in one click, you can download large number of books, large textbooks, and also articles. Okay, so now many students, my own understanding is that nowadays it is not difficult to get the material. Most of the students, they follow the way of shortcut. Okay, please, my humble request is that most of, if you have sufficient material, please at least read one article one day and write down the summary of the article. And what you are doing, my own experience is that, so you do not want to write. Remember one thing. So if you remember, so read once, think twice, and write thrice. This principle that you have to apply in your life. Okay, so not on this research work, anything. So you have to, so don't believe in the shortcut. Okay, so try to, if you read more and more, your understanding will develop. Not on one book, read 2 books, 3 books, like review of literature chapter, at least read 10 chapters, what they have written, how they have written, what things they have written. Okay, so they get idea, because everything is based on your research gap. So this is, I hope, so many sources are there, so you can, through which you can do review of literature. You know these things, so I am not going for detailed understanding of this. Everyone, those who are there, my own practical experience I am sharing, that when you are writing review of literature, so maybe, so you just, any ascending or descending order of the years that the article published, you do that, national, international. And remember one thing, so when you are writing, suppose I am working on tribals, so I am working on income. What is the income or occupation? So that does not mean that I will not cover their expenditure pattern. I need to review on education. I have review to health. So different dimensions of the income generative activity. So any topic you are working, not to specify, yes, that is with your research work, but other dimension, you have to take an idea to understand where you actually on this issue. So you have to keep in mind when you are writing. So the second point that I say, that in the last, when you have suppose 20, so what is generally people ask me, sir, how many articles that I need to review? I generally say, remember one thing, you as a student, you download at least 50 articles, good journals articles. Okay, so you just maybe on different aspects, then you sit together and write. And then in the last paragraph, you write down this gap as a research. This having gone through the literature, please, you have to keep in mind, as this is my important source of, okay, so this study, my study is different as the other study. Because most of the time, if you, I as a student, I as a teacher, I ask many times this question, you tell me immediately how your study is different from the citation that you have given in the reference. Okay, so you have to be very clear on that. If you are not understanding, so many students, people, those who are coming for the interview, they don't have understanding. Now they just write down 2-3 articles from the internet without any, so they are not also good journalists. They do not know who people are working in this area. Please, my humble request is that whenever you are writing a review of literature, so at least on which area you are working, at least try to keep in mind the 10 people name, those who are working in that area. And at least so you can satisfy your interview board. Okay, so this is the most important point, so you have to keep in mind. Okay, now having gone through this understanding, so you have to develop one thing. So you remember one thing. So here, so you have to, now you, from this research gap, you identify your problem. The slide is visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So you just look at it. Now, this is generally, so far what we have seen. So if you go for this that we write, many people, so they start with this statement of problem. Okay, so when I was student, my supervisor told me that you start with this statement of problem. That is your choice. You can do that. Same information, na? Taking the background, taking the theoretical understanding, taking the introduction, taking the general information, you start and then you come to your problem. So remember one thing, so you have to, so already, so where you will find your problem? You will get from the review of literature. Now you identify your problem. Okay, so you provide something. Suppose I am working. So the question why? Okay, so now if you go for every student should ask themselves that, remember one thing, the one question, that why I am interested to work on this topic. Okay, you ask not one time, 2 times, because many students do not know this thing. If you I'll ask मैं क्यों काम करना चाह रहा हूँ उसमें आंसर नहीं है. So my request to everyone, remember one thing, you everyone as a student, as a teacher, so we should ask ourselves that हम इसमें why we are working on these things. Okay, so that in the statement of problem, so you provide all the information that I'm writing. So you just go to the slide, whatever I'm written. So you can, if you read this book that I have shared, so you can get a much idea on this. So don't worry for that, but you just get an idea of what you have to write in your synopsis and what you have to defend in case of your, whenever you are writing your research work. Now, so if you go for, if you this research, if you go for, so if you have any question, please, you just write down. After whenever finish, you will ask me questions, I will answer. Okay, so all these points, whatever this is written, so you have to very clear on this problem that you have to write that down. Okay, remember one thing. So now, what is your, if you go for your problem? So remember one thing. So I have taken from this is from Ranjit Kumar. Ranjit Kumar, Research Methodology Step by Step. Okay, so this is a good book to understand in a such a best, this is a basic, if you want to go for your problem, your research problem, maybe remember one thing. So this just look at it. So maybe, so this, if you go for your research problem is located in your 4 P's, that is people, that is problem, that is program, that is phenomena. I just look at it, so no need of explanations on this. Okay, so if you go for most of our research work in social science, and particularly I'm talking about social science, not in physical science. So if you go for, generally we study individual, we study society, we study organization, we study community. So okay, so all this and also different programs. Okay, so thousands of programs are running on. So on, and also the cause and effect. Okay, so if you go for this cause and effect relationship, so different, your problem, if you go for, is broadly located Okay, so on this 4Ps, you just look at it. So I am not going for detail on this. Okay, so this you have to, if you have any questions beyond that in social science, you do not find your location of the problem beyond that. Suppose I am working, just look at it in the development sector. You talk about migration, you talk about Monrega, you talk about this health, you talk about your education, you talk about your higher education. Okay, so many dimensions if you go for. Now, if you go for the present contemporary, I am in the Center for Informal Sector Labor Studies. If you go for a labor issue now, the gig economy. In the present context now in the new area, remember one thing. So I am coming to this research. So I hope everyone knows this thing. So no need of explaining this concept. But remember one thing, I am sharing my experience because most of the students, they think themselves that you will do a new thing that, okay, other has not done this in that area. Remember one thing, in the social science, you will find, I say research. What do you mean by research? Is addition to the existing knowledge. That's what we understand in the social science research. So when you are selecting a research problem or any topic, broadly you just look at it. I hope that your self-interest. Okay, so if you go for, if you have not, and what is this? If you go for, and all the point, you talk about your interest, you talk about magnitude, you talk about measurement, you talk about expertise, you talk about relevance, you talk about data availability, talk about ethical issue, we talk about resource availability, all the points that you have to keep in mind. Always remember one thing, you have to keep in mind, first all the out of this point, your supervisor understanding, on which area your supervisor is working, on which area he or she is more comfortable. You just go through this website, whatever this CV, you will find this short biography on that they are working. Okay, remember one thing I should say here. Suppose if you are applying in my center as your PhD student, remember one thing, you have to just gone through the faculty member in this center. Suppose we have 77 faculty are there. You just go their CVs on which they are working and on which they are writing. So maybe, so you have to update yourself that, okay, on this area, these people are commanding on that. When you are coming to a PhD viva, so maybe, so you get an idea on that area. Okay, so you can, and also on what is the, suppose our center is labor, and if you go for informal sector worker, and you are giving a synopsis which is not related to our department or our center. So immediately first question that we'll ask the students that tell us at how far the center objective is fulfilling in your research proposal that you want to conduct. So remember one thing, every center you are applying in JNU or in Hyderabad, BHU or in Jamia, so everywhere, wherever you are applying, so you have to first go through the center outline, their center objective. And on this, you prepare your proposal accordingly. Okay, so I'm talking about interdisciplinary. Okay, and core discipline is fine in economics, in sociology, in anthropology, in political science, you know better than me. Okay, so you have to remember one thing. When you are writing this thing, so you have to very clear on this. Two things that you have to keep in mind, that whether the data is available or not, first you have to keep in mind. Because why I'm telling you that many times our young mind motivate a research work, I always encourage students that you select your topic, PhD work. I remember, so just experience I'm saying, one student said that I will work on discriminations. As a student of economics, I will work on discrimination. So in that sense, if you go for discrimination, how you will measure that discrimination as a student of economics? Is there any economic tool for that? I say, okay, you just proceed. You have to go to the literature, how discrimination is measured. What is their methodology? Is there an economic tool to measure discrimination? So you have to very clear whenever you are writing one thing, all this, and also whether it is relevant in the present context, whether it is useful to do the study. Okay, so that is very, suppose any new area if you are working, that will give you more weightage in terms of the market economy. You have to develop yourself. This is not now you just many areas now develop that you have plenty of opportunity you can explore on in terms of if you go for these things. Okay, so that is another dimension that you have to clear on this. Okay, so just one thing, this slide is visible. Just read quickly.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So if you go for these things, okay, so when you are just formulating a research problem, so you just look at it. I have also taken a same those who are understanding on this. So you have to first broad area, then you have to broad area, sub-broad area, then you have to which area interest, then you raise the questions, then you formulate the objective, then you assess the objective, and also double check. This is the format that you have to follow on this. Just look at it. Suppose this is the broad area, broad subject area, domestic violence. You just look at it, the sub areas. Okay, so this slide is visible. Is it? Can you read it or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, just look at it. Yeah. So if you go for just look at it. So if you go for subject area, first when you are the researcher, you have to one broad area. From that means from general to that you know that different tools are there. Maybe I will explain. So okay, so this if you go for subject area and you just look at it, all the dimensions. Okay, so domestic violence, their profile, if you go for the parameter, the reason for domestic violence, extent and types of domestic violence, on which area, many areas are there. So you can explore if you go for these things. Okay, so after your main area, broad area, so you are making sub area. Then you can just look at it. Suppose now this slide is visible. Suppose I say, okay, so just hello. Is it audible?
Slide is not clear.
Yes, sir.
Is it audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good. Okay, so just look at it. Maybe I will share. Don't worry, I will share the books. If you go interested. Remember one thing. Suppose if you go for, so I say if you are developing a research area on specific suppose topic you are working on. Hello, Shubham. Shubham, are you asking something or unmute yourself? Okay. So if you go for, remember one thing. So this, suppose if you go for, you as a researcher, you have to very clear on this. Suppose if you want to the step that whenever you research, suppose I say I want to work on alcohol. Okay, those who are drinking on alcohol. Okay, so these are areas. So suppose I say there are many. So if you go for these causes of alcohol, so suppose I say what is the impact on this income of this alcohol for the particular family, or you suppose alcohol many dimensions. So I want to this is the relationship, the impact of the wife. Suppose male is drinking alcohol. So what is the relationship between husband and wife with respect to basically on this or treatment, any dimension that you want to explore. Suppose you have to select only one area. Okay, so on the family, what is the impact of those who are drinking in alcohol, their impact on the family. Okay, so you have to raise question like this. So what is the impact of alcohol on the marital relationships? How does it affect the various aspects of child? Okay, those who are the family members or other dimensions you have to formulate. Okay, so you have to develop your questions. Okay, so always remember one thing. I will come to this point. Just look at it. Yeah, this slide is visible.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So if you go for, just look at it now. So so far you completed the first part, the question of why. Not the question why you find, not the question why you find from research gap. Okay, now the some part is over. Now the first, now after this you identify your research questions or research that we, if you go for that morally, many people use research questions and we write generally objective of the study. Okay, remember one, that is different. I will explain later. So if you go for, when you are writing your research objective, that is your question what? The question what is called as a your, if you go for your objective of the study. So if you go for the question what, okay, so objective of the study, always remember one thing, whenever you are writing this question why, okay, so your objective should be very clear that what you want to find out. Okay, you identify the problem. Okay, so suppose migration, I find. So I to remember always when you are writing this objective, you just look at it. Always we write, just look at it in action verb, to find out, to determine, to analyze, to verify, to calculate, to describe, okay, to suggest. Okay, so always you have to write your objective. Or remember one thing, when you are writing research question, always written in the question form. When you are writing objective, always you have to write in this form that is given. Always, most of this, you just example, suppose I am working on tribals. Okay, so I say to find out different source of livelihood of PVTs in Odisha. Okay, to find out the socio-economic conditions of migrant laborers, or to find out the developmental intervention taken by the government of and state government for the development of PVTG. Okay, so broadly, remember one thing. So when suppose I am working on tribes, okay, so this is my broad area. So with this specify on the problem that you want to explore. That is generally that we call as a objective of the study. Okay, so and you just look at it, your objective of the study should be smart. If you go for smart, you just look at it and read the slide. Okay, if you go for your this objective, remember one thing. So that objective should be specific, that you can measure it. Okay, that you can also with this objective that you can write in a such a manner that at least you can get the data from that. Okay, so and also within the time period. Okay, so your whenever you are writing your objective, okay, remember one thing in the synopsis. So either you write, okay, research questions, okay, in the question format, okay, and also then this objective you can write. Okay, so this is not many people, they here we generally follow, we write down the research question, then we write your objective. Okay, so this is the fourth part. So remember one thing, now the question of why and what is over. Many other dimensions are there. If you will ask me, I will answer there. Okay, now, so after many things which is very important, okay, many people ask this question, that is your hypothesis. Please, so it is not essential that you have to write a hypothesis in your synopsis or research proposal. Remember, is it? So suppose I am student of sociology, I am student of anthropology. Okay, so there is no need of writing a hypothesis in your synopsis. Remember, second condition, if you are writing a hypothesis, remember one thing, so you have to test it. Remember, most of my own experience I am sharing, most of the students, they write the hypothesis in your synopsis, maybe 5, 6, I am sharing, one of the students have written 12 hypotheses and no single information in case your data analysis, the analysis chapter. So whether you accept or reject. So if there is not a mandatory that you have to write as a student of economics and student of management, and those who are commanding on, they are doing quantitative research, that you need to write a hypothesis. You know, I hope most of us, you know, that hypothesis is nothing but a tentative assumption, a statement. Okay, so you have to, if you have, So whether it is true or not true, we do not know. Okay, so you as a researcher, so you have to very, very clear that whether I will write a hypothesis or not. So you know, so most of this synopsis, if you are writing, okay. If you are not writing, that is also okay. But they depend upon I as a supervisor. I always say my student, you have to write the hypothesis. Okay. So, so if you go for, okay, so I will, whenever I will go for this, just let me finish, then I will answer whatever the question that you have. Okay, so you have to keep in mind, this is the first now hypothesis. Remember one thing, hypothesis is an assumption, is a statement that may be true or may not be true. So you just assume before you start this work. Remember one thing I forget to mention here, when you are writing a synopsis or research proposal, it should be always, you should write in future tense. Sorry, yeah, I should say in the past. So you have to keep in mind. So like I will collect, or the study will always future tense whenever write. Because I think I have experience, students, they copy paste from the internet and they are used words where. Okay, so you have to very, very, if you go for this, this hypothesis whenever writing, so you have to keep in mind. Okay, so remember the I say, there is not mandatory that you have to write a hypothesis. If you are writing a hypothesis, okay, so you have to, in this, if you are writing, then you have to test it in your analysis chapter. Okay, so, and you know, at least two variables should be there. When you are writing a hypothesis, that I know, you know, I hope there is a dependent variable, independent variable. Okay, so you have to go for dependent and independent variable when you are doing a hypothesis. You just go through the slide. Okay, so I am not, so I understand the time is not. So you remember one thing. So one thing, many people ask here, I should just example, maybe whenever we'll discuss, you will have research questions and hypothesis. Always remember one thing, you just look at the example. Okay, when you write research questions or research objectives, so you just in the question format, like I say, do students who attend more lecture get better exam results? Any subject. So if you exactly formulate into hypothesis, you just look at it, is the assumption. Attending more lecture leads to better exam results. This is my guess, my assumption, my thinking. So how you convert a research question into hypothesis? This is very, very important, and many people are confusing on that. So you have to keep in mind. Now, remember one thing. So far we have covered on this this part is now the question. Now two part is over. Remember one thing. The first part is over in terms of your question why and what. Okay. Now remember the question how. This is very, very important for you to when you write these things. Okay. So on these cases of this methodology, okay, so you have to very, very clear on this part, because your thesis is totally based on this part. After this first part is over, this question why and what, the third part how is very, very important. Remember one thing, generally in the synopsis, so the first part, now you just summarize the question. So if you go for, so these questions, if you go for, now you just look at it, you say this question third part. Okay, so now your question how. I say how is nothing but your methodology of this study. So now, so in your synopsis, you have to first point, you have to think, many people that we call as a research design. Many people start with the second point that we call as a study area. Remember one thing, whether your research design in terms, whether it is a qualitative, whether it is a, yes, I will explain now. All the point you just write down, I will explain after some point of time. Just wait, give me some time. I will finish and I will explain every answer, whatever information. So remember one thing, the first point that you have to keep in mind. So what type of research? Whether it is a, you know different types of research. If you go for whether it is a or descriptive research, you know meaning of descriptive research. whether it is a explorative research, whether it is a inductive research, whether it is a deductive research. Okay, so different types of research that we have different types. So cause and effect relationship, many different. So your research, so you have to very clear on that, whether, like you see, broadly we say inductive research and deductive research. Okay, so if you go for inductive research, so what do you mean by that? When you say deductive, means general to particular. If you go for inductive, so particular to general. Most of the research in the social science is based on your, if you go for either based on inductive or deductive research. So what type of research design that you have in your research area, you have to very clear on that. Okay, so before you start, most of the, suppose I am doing a quantitative research. Okay, so I have a, generally it is based in the principle of, if you go for that we call as a deductive. So we go for a theory that exists, we just test it. But in case of your sociology, your anthropology, your political science, in the, any qualitative study, so means that less information. So you, whenever you enter into the field, you will explain more and more, and you develop more theory on that. Okay, so that you have to very clear on which parameter your research is based before you start your research work. And this in the methodology, generally I say to the students that you have to write first study area. What do you mean by study area? So study area means, remember one thing, when you say study area, so you define as, so suppose I am working on Kandhamal district of Odisha. So you have to provide a general background, okay, of the study area. Suppose I am working on the tribe of Odisha in Kandhamal district. So my first in the synopsis, I will write down one paragraph of Kandhamal district, which that means Kandhamal district geographical area, Kandhamal district population, Kandhamal district male, female, Kandhamal district literacy. I'm just giving one example. You will, in one paragraph, you will provide on basically from which you will select your required sample for your study. Okay, so that study area means your district, maybe your block, maybe your village, or anything. You just provide the first point that you have to keep in mind, that you have to provide a study area. Okay, now, if you go for the second point, which is very, very essential because of the time constraint, this is in the real sense, if you go for most of the cases, remember one thing, so this is that the sample size. Most of the cases, remember one thing, many students ask, भाई सर मैं कितना sample size होना चाहिए, कितना हमारा ये होगा. So you have to, if you go for, remember one thing, you just look at it. So if you go for, so I have already explained this point, this, now you just look at it. So this is very, very important. If you go for, just look at it. Many people, many students confused. Remember one thing. So I here always say, so there are different techniques to determine your sample size. Okay, but generally, thumb rule, if I say, I hope this slide is visible. You know there are different types of sampling. One is the probability sampling, another in the non-probability sampling. Okay, if time permit, I will discuss more detail on that. Remember, what is the most student face the problem that if you go for, like if you go for, so they always say that what is the actual appropriate sample size is useful for me. So, and if you ask a student, they generally say that random sampling. What is your sampling that you have collected or selected for these things? So they do not have much idea, and the answer you will find purposive sampling, or the two words random sampling. But they don't have a clarity that what type of different types under probability sampling, what are different types of non-probability sampling. Remember one thing, if your sample size is wrong, your whole analysis will be wrong. Okay, so my request to everyone that I do not know how many of you, if you ask students that what do you mean by sampling, do you know what is the answer that they will provide? They will provide that sampling as a sample. They will define sampling as a sample. Remember one thing, sampling is not sample. Sampling is a technique, sampling is a method, sampling is a tool through which you will select the required sample from the population. Suppose in my class, suppose 200 students are participating. If I am selecting, suppose 20 or 30, so how I will select this 30? Okay, so that is through this, if you go for sampling technique. Don't be confused the sampling of this. Okay, so I will explain. So maybe if you go for, so there we have a different, but I should answer that most of the students, what they, I say, remember one thing, if you are student of, if you are doing research is on quantitative research. If you are doing a quantitative research, my request is that please always take sample of 250 to 300 or plus. Always. Because if you are applying any statistical tool, okay, for a quantitative study, it is very helpful to use this that we call as a, if you go for your quantitative research. Okay, so when you say like if you go for, so you know whether it is a quantitative, your research, and you know what is your research qualitative. Suppose most of the sociology, most of the anthropology, most of the, so they do this qualitative survey. Okay, so as a student of economics, we do quantitative, magnitude, number. Okay, so in that sense, your 250 to 300, if you are taking sample, is a best representative of the population. First point, I'm talking about thumb rule. There are different statistical tools that will determine your sample size. But you have to keep in mind that when you are writing and in qualitative research, suppose I am a sociologist, I'm working on tribes of Kanda tribe. If you say 100, 150, okay, so that is the appropriate sample size for your research work. So you as a researcher politely tell to your expert, RSC members or all the experts those who are asking the question that, sir, whatever sample, if you are calculating method, that's fine, everything is the statistical tool using. But if you are taking, many people ask, why 300, not 350? Why not 400? Why not 500? Many people ask this question. So you politely don't fight with your external, don't fight with your supervisor. You politely say that, sir, whatever the sample that I am thinking is the best representative, and that will address the questions or the answer or the problem that in my research work. So you have to politely defend it. And if you are applying, so you as a researcher, don't fight with anyone. My personal experience is that most of the students, now this young researcher, you are the carry forward. So what you are doing, immediately if I'm asking questions, you are asking 3 questions, 4 questions. Please don't think that I know better than you. We are learning each point of time. So you have to keep in mind that, okay, I will explain. There are different statistical methods. Just give me some time. Okay, so whatever the question on that. Okay, so you, and only thing is that, remember in thing, I know. So this is the general idea. So if you go for probability sampling, you just look at it. Probability sampling is that I don't have time, so I'm not able to explain detail on that. Remember, at least you should know, there is no personal bias in case of your probability sampling. Remember one thing, again and again I'm telling. So every individual has equal and independent chance to be a sample. Most of the, if you go for, like we have simple random sampling, systematic random sampling, stratified random sampling, clustered random sampling, and also if you go for your multi-stage sampling. Remember one thing, I'm just within 2-3 minutes, I'm summarizing. Simple random sampling only when you will apply when the population is homogeneous. First criteria, other points are there. Simple random sampling will apply when the population is homogeneous. Okay, the systematic random sampling only apply remember one thing, when the population is known, if the population is not known, you cannot apply systematic random sampling. You know that is class interval are there. Maybe in the next class in future, we'll discuss on this. And your stratified random sampling will apply only when the population is heterogeneous. That you have to keep in mind. And you are this, and this is the stratified random sampling is one of the best sampling in case of your social science. And there is less error. And this is the best appropriate sampling when you are talking about these things. And also remember one thing, cluster sampling. Most of the cluster sampling is based on a geographical factor. So most of the cluster sampling, if you go for the ethnographic study, most of the anthropologists, most of the sociologists, so they use in case of your cluster sampling. And if you go for multi-stage sampling, so always remember one thing, multi-stage sampling is used when your population is very large. Okay, when the population is very large, only when you have to select state, you have to select district, you have to select block. So in this sense, so you have to select. Maybe, and the convenience, I know, non-probability judgment, quota sampling, snowball sampling, I just a little bit say. Remember one thing, the purposive sampling, if you go for, when you say purposive, most of the students say purposive sampling. Purposive sampling is that sampling in which, if you go for, so you find on the basis of researcher understanding, on the basis of researcher judgment, the sample he or she is selecting is the best representative of the population. Most of the students हम लोग use करते हैं, if you go for that we call as a purposive sampling. Many students, yeah, remember one thing, another thing I will say here, many people confuse that I will use only probability sampling, I cannot use non-probability sampling. In your research work, you can use probability sampling and simultaneously in second instance you can use non-probability sampling. So that means you have to very clear, so your research, when your sample design is based on both. That you have to keep in mind. I will, if time permit, I will discuss more on this. Okay, so this is, if your sampling is wrong, your whole analysis will be wrong. So you have to keep in mind that when you have to determine your sampling. Now, so if you go for now, after you just remember, now, remember one thing, that tool of data collection, this is very, very important. Remember one thing, if most of the, in your synopsis, you have to clearly mention that what are the tools of data collection. Okay, so you have to clearly mention that I will use or the study will be based on the following tools that you know. Okay, so that I hope most of the cases you know. So if you go for schedule and questionnaire, okay, I think most of the students, those who are here, please try to be very clear. I will explain. This you talk about schedule, you talk about questionnaire, you talk about village schedule, you talk about household schedule. Remember one thing. So there is a difference between questionnaire and schedule. Okay, so you have to very, very clear when you say questionnaire and schedule. What is the difference? Remember one thing. I'm just explaining. If you go for, you have set of questions, your father name, your mother name, your land holding, your occupation, your age, okay, anything you are writing. Okay, if you are, okay, sending this question through the respondent, through mail, through courier, through post, okay, any by, and the respondent himself or herself answer the questions and return back to the researcher, that is called as a questionnaire. Please don't be confused. Many students do not know the difference between questionnaire and schedule. Yesterday, I am taking a class, so I found same thing. The researcher do not know that there is a difference between questionnaire and schedule. Many times he is speaking on questionnaire, though he used the schedule. What is the schedule? Now set of questions, you go to in front of the your respondent and ask the respondent, what is your name? The respondent answer, you researcher fill this answer. Okay, So that is schedule, face-to-face interview. Okay, so if you go for, so that is the, if that means, so you try to understand most of the field visit or interview that we are conducting through the schedule, or different schedules are structured or unstructured, different issues are there. So I am not going for that. Okay, so you have to, so remember one thing. So when you are doing a field survey, so you have to clearly tell to your that, okay, this is my schedule, this is my household. Basically, remember one thing, when you go for there, if you are doing primary survey, so you understand these are the tools that you are using. And also, if you go for mostly, so if you go for household information, the questionnaire, this is another separate section. So if you are a student of economics, you are not doing a field survey. Remember one thing, or any those who are not only working on secondary data, not on primary data. So you clearly tell in your tool that, okay, I have used this regression model, I have used this model, whatever your inequality or any topic model or chi-square, parametric and non-parametric or z-test, whatever test you have used. In this, you clearly mention, okay, I have used this model, this is my independent variable, this is my independent variable, these are the factors that I have taken into account. So every information that you have to provide in case of your tools of data collection, please, that you have to keep in mind, one line, two line. So you know this household schedule will consist the information of the household, head of the household. Village schedule consists of your information about the village. So whatever, and you have to keep in mind. So that we call as your tools of data collection. So many times, so you have to very clear. So what you have to write in your tool of data collection. Okay, so that is, if you go for, that is the first that you have to keep. Okay, so if you go for data source, remember one thing, just look at it. Just read this slide. This slide is visible?
Yes,
This
sir.
slide is visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Remember one thing. So you have to, so now your tools of data collection, within the, I am talking about within the methodology head. Remember one thing, if you go for most of the cases, you will find that sources of data, you just clearly tell in your synopsis or research proposal. So the study is based on both primary data and secondary data. You just look at the wording. I have given one example that from my synopsis, suppose I have given, I'm working on self-help group. Okay, impact of self-help group on women empowerment in a tribal area. Okay, suppose this is my research. So now, if you go for the source of data, you just look at it. So I say my study is based on both primary data and the secondary data. So you clearly remember one thing, you have to clearly mention that what is the source of secondary data. So remember one thing, the secondary data will be collected from this, just look at the read. So you talk about, suppose this is the self-help group. You're talking about local NGO, NABARD, where the source is located. Secondary source, you know the difference between primary data and secondary data. So my request all the researchers, so first of all in your field note or field diary, you clearly, a personal diary, you just write down where I will get the data if I do this research on this topic. Please, before you start your writing your synopsis, you have to always able to write these things. Okay, so clearly mention that things that you have to write down these things. Okay, so you just, I say, in your source of data, you clearly mention these point in the methodology part. So the study is based or will be based on both primary and secondary data. The secondary data will be collected like just go through the point. Okay, everywhere it is same, but you have to change this for the source. And also the last one, we also collect different, okay, journals, newspaper, articles, books, or many things, whatever you have to write. You just clearly write on that. Then you just, the primary data will be collected. You just look at it through interview, through focus group discussion, to participate in rural appraisal, through structured or semi-structured schedule. Okay, these are the, or you have to clearly mention how you will collect your this data. Remember one thing, I found my own experience. Those students are submitting the abstract or synopsis to this PhD interview. They only in one line, they write the methodology, 2 line maximum. Please, always your teacher will ask you, you tell me first question, your research gap, tell me your objective. Third, you will ask, you tell me how you will address, what is the methodology that you want to follow for this study. So if you are clear on that, you can answer everything. So maybe we'll discuss more on this thing. Okay, now this part, if you go for, you understand source of data. Okay, so all this I'm talking about within the methodology, third part. So if you go for this one, now you just look at it. If you go for now data analysis, if you go for data analysis, remember one thing. So you have to very clear in terms of when say, so the data, the quantitative, you just read this slide. Yeah? So if you go for the quantitative data, the qualitative data will be whatever the data will collected. So that will be entered into SPSS, that will enter into a Stata software. I'm talking about different software. Many students, those who are Excel, those do not know. Okay, so you have to write down or Excel, yes, the statistical package for social science, SPSS, Stata, R, eView, many quantitative software are there through which we will enter the data and analyze. Besides, remember one thing, those who are qualitative research doing, many software are there. I'm not expert in that area, but I know that is one of the best software that we call it the Atlas TI. Just look at it. So this is those who are expert in that area, Atlas TI, which is very much useful for analyzing qualitative data. Okay, so you have to how you will the data that you will collect to the field, the data that you will collect from the secondary source, how will analyze. Okay, so and then you just tell that in this synopsis, you just wording, just look at the wording. You can write the same way that the analysis, the data will be analyzed through this software, and then it is presented in the form of graph, in the form of table, in the form of chart, in terms of flow chart, in terms of box diagram, anything you can write. So that you have to, this in terms of your data analysis, that you have to very clear on that. Okay, so this is, so all of many other dimensions are there in this methodology part. So some other subhead are there, but this is broadly we have to follow on this. Now, after this, remember one thing. So you have to maybe. So now this is mostly we say that what is the relevance of this study. Okay, remember this. Just read it. Is it visible? Just look at the slide, please.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes,
Just
yes,
read.
sir.
If you
Clear.
go,
Yes,
remember
sir.
one thing. Just look at it.
Yes, sir.
So always you have to answer these questions that this study. Okay, so many importance of the study. Yeah, I have shared other points. You just look at it. How this study will be helpful. I always ask in the interview board. Suppose in PhD defense, I ask the questions that you tell me your research output, research finding in 2 lines, and you tell me what is the implication of your research to the society. That you have to very clear on this. But in the synopsis, you just read the language. So if I will do this research, I will identify the problems, the failures, the challenges that these suppose they are facing. Okay, so this is a self-help group contest. I have given the example. You can go for migration, you can go for tribal, anything you want to do on this, quality of primary education, quality of higher education, anything. And you just look at, so this research will be very much useful by the policymakers, the planners, okay, those who are are part of this activity they doing for the benefit of the society, so they may be useful. Now the third, and remember one thing, lastly you say that the findings of the study will be useful for the researcher, the government official, the NGO, the academicians for the further research in that area. Okay, so you have to very, very clear on this when you are writing your relevance and many other dimensions. Because now, if you go for most of the study, you will find that is written in terms of that we are talking about the implication, the relevance of your research work. So you have to clearly estimate that one. Then only you can do these things. And remember one thing, if you go for now, if you go for this, so this many students do not know. Okay, so you write clearly. Remember one thing, I always say, okay, you just write down the tentative chapter, because this is your synopsis, this is your proposal. You are thinking that, remember one thing, so you have to, this is not a hard and fast rule that you have to follow this way. You can change it, you can write, you can change. Broadly, remember one thing, 6, 7 chapters. Hello? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
I lost your network connection.
Yes, sir.
Your network connection is lost. Okay, so
Yes, sir.
yeah, you just look at it. If okay, so you have to, when you are writing this, if you go for your chapters, so you clearly first remember one thing. You have to 5 or 6 chapters. Remember one thing, your introduction and your conclusion. Okay, so you will find your introduction and conclusion. Most of the cases you will find that is fixed. Okay, you have to write. And besides, maybe so many people write a review of literature as a separate chapter. Okay, so if you writing review of literature, that is your choice. You can write. Otherwise, you can merge with your any other chapter in the introduction or any other chapter. And also same like you can write. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I have lost.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Yeah, so fine.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay, so if you go for just look at it, mostly cases you will find that most of this, if you go for this chapter, so and remember one thing, you have to analyze at least 2, 3 secondary chapters for your research work. This is the tentative chapter, and 1 chapter or 2 chapter if you are doing a field survey, that we call it the analysis chapter, analysis from the field, that you have to write. Okay, so that is something, is a tentative, that part you have to cover. Okay, so this is the something that you have to follow. One thing I need to clarify here, most of the students do not have, if you just tell this is a tentative in your synopsis. Okay, so you can change. Okay, anytime you can change. And one thing, when you are, because most of the students are here, my request to everyone that if you are doing the field work, please before your field work, you finish your all the secondary chapter. Without your review literature chapter, without your secondary chapter, without your theoretical understanding chapter, then please don't proceed for the field work. Because nowadays, my own understanding is that, so maybe I just one slide, then I will speak on other dimensions. You just look at it. This after this, so other points are there, I have already explained, is this one. This is very, very important. If you go for, you just look at it. Most of the cases that in the last part, that is reference. So remember one thing, always as an expert, I always look at what are the authors. Suppose you are working on child labor, you are working on quality of education, you are working on unpaid works. Okay, so immediately impression. So in your reference, you have to be as a researcher, as an expert. So we have to go through it. What are the articles? Is the student given the sufficient articles that actually those who are working in the field, or only just Google and download the article and just cite it. Please don't do that. You have to provide some good articles whenever things that you are talking about reference. Now, the second question is that what is the difference between reference and bibliography? Remember one thing, again and again I'm telling you, when you say reference, so that means in text, in the inside the article, as a author, you have given, okay, the author's work or author's understanding, and you have cited in the text. Okay, so whatever text you have cited in the article, that should be reference. Okay, but you have not cited, but you have read, you have take some idea, you have set some understanding. Okay, so in that sense, you have not cited, you have just for your own sake understanding, you just use. That is, if you go for that, we call as a bibliography. Bibliography is a universal set, and your reference is a subset of that. Remember one thing, this is you try to understand most of the, now in a thesis, in our time, we use bibliography. Now students are doing reference, that is your choice, but it is appropriate, you should use bibliography, because many things you are cited, not cited, but you have gone through these many books, many articles, and you take some idea. So it is always you should write bibliography. This is the difference between bibliography and reference. One thing that you have to very clear on that, if you are writing a bibliography or writing a reference, my own experience is that last time many students submitted the reference minimum 30, 40 reference, copy paste. But there is no single citation in the text, inside the article. If I ask the author that why particular to the students, that why you have not given this in-text citation in this case, so he maybe, this is, I'm sorry to say, that maybe she do not know that I have to provide in-text citation inside the test. Many times, many problems. So remember one thing, two sides. If you are writing something and you are not, and one thing, you have to, whatever the citations you are providing, that should be reflected in your reference. And also, if you go for, there is many citation in the test, but there is no reference list. Okay, so you have to very clear on that, because immediately if you want to judge a student, so immediately parameter, you just go to the reference, and that reference will establish you on this case. Okay, so these are the, if you go for broadly, remember one thing, so I say, so many other dimensions are there, so I may be not able to these things. So you have to very clear on this. Okay, so these are the points that you have to, whenever you are writing a synopsis, okay, so you have to, these are the points that you have to keep in mind. Okay, so every point, so most of the students, if you are following this pattern, this many, if you go for some professor change the wording, some other concept, other term, and other sub area, so that is your choice. You can write. Okay, so this is my understanding of, if you go for, if you are writing this point in your research proposal, so I think you will get a good understanding of these things. Okay, so this is the things that you have to follow. Okay, so this is one aspect that I need to, okay, so you have to prepare yourself. Okay, so I should now, whatever the questions that you have, you one by one, you just write or unmute yourself, that I will ask the concept. Okay, now the first question someone is given is that number of objective. Remember one thing, I say, so there is no hard and fast rule that you have to, many students are there, so they are writing maybe 10, 12 objectives. Please don't do that. If in what extent you can able to achieve from the field with your time limit, with that you have to taken care of that. Are you seeing maybe 1 dimension, 2 dimension, 3 dimension? If you are taking that case, so that will be more than sufficient for a PhD work. Okay, so I think, so this is from my side. So from this, so don't be confused as a synopsis, don't be confused as a research proposal. So now this is the one aspect. Just give me 5 minutes, then I will stop. Just give me, yeah, I will explain. I say another dimension. If you go for, what is the difference between, if you go for your project proposal, and I say in the first, I say there is a difference between your project proposal and is it visible? Is it visible?
Yes,
sir.
yes, sir.
Yes,
Suppose
sir.
if you are writing, I say if you are writing a funding, a proposal for funding, suppose I am a teacher, so different organization is providing funding for the research. You talk about UGC, you talk about ICCR, you talk about different ministry. So in that sense, you will find many studies are there. So in that sense, so time, you just look at this. This is the only difference between a research proposal for the funding. This is the timeline. So no need of mentioning time in case of your project proposal for the academic purpose that you are submitting. And also if you go for, like, just look at it. So if you go for, this is the budget, just look at it. Suppose you just imagine, you provide, you give me 20 lakhs, I will do the study. You just, this is the format that generally we follow whenever we are submitting for the project for the any funding agency that you want to provide. Okay, so this is the difference between project proposal for the academic and the project proposal funding. Please, those who are teacher here, please be clear on this dimension. The time and budget is not in case of your academic proposal, and your project proposal or funding proposal, you have this time and budget. Okay, so this is the pattern. So this is the something about you have to write your research proposal. Okay, so now let me ask any questions related to whatever the that you want to ask me. I will try to answer one by one. Yeah. So can I go to the questions, whatever the, so in the field social science, whether research could done in the biological aspect of personal, yeah. Yes, Keshav sir, yeah. Yeah, just unmute yourself and speak one by one. Oh,
Good afternoon, sir.
yeah, just a minute. Those who have written this, how to frame a questionnaire, maybe in the in future. So we'll give a talk on this, how to design a questionnaire. This will also take another 2-3 hours. So many times we have given. So in near future we'll do that. We'll try to this particularly on this aspect of your questionnaire design. We'll do that. We'll take care of that. Yes, you can remember one thing. If you go for the same hypothesis, so remember, you know the difference between hypothesis and question. You can do it. No, you can do this. The same question, you can change it. Okay, generally, so the research questions and your research hypothesis will provide a roadmap to achieve your research work, to proceed your research work, to guide your research work. Okay, so that you have to keep in mind. In qualitative sample size, in qualitative research, I say, suppose I am working on Musa community, I am working on Munda community, I am working on Mankaria community. So in that sense, qualitative research, if you are taking, because in-depth analysis is there, so in that sense, if you are taking 100 or 100 plus, that is a more appropriate sample size for the research work. Yeah. Yeah, who's speaking? Just tell me. I will answer one question. Then I will look.
Yes, sir. Actually, during this discussion, some of participants or friends have raised some questions. Just to read it out. 10 questions have been already in chat box, and a few are already been answered. Prakash Patra raised the questions. Research questions, where it will be, and there will be in thesis. Just I read out the because some of questions are repeated in different participants, that's why I will read all of the questions what I have noted, and
Okay.
then one by one different aspects will be answered by our resource person.
Okay. Okay.
Then I will put 2 to 3 questions. What is the difference between thesis and dissertation? Is it necessary to frame hypothesis in writing an article?
Generally, if you go for thesis and dissertation, generally in our time now MPhil, if you are writing MPhil degree, so that is called as a dissertation. Most of if you go for generally we follow this, the MPhil degree we call, if that is not thesis, but for PhD, that this research work we call as a thesis, and if you are doing your MPhil, we call that a dissertation. But most of the times also your MA, if suppose MA, those who are doing project, some paper on this, that we call a seminar paper, or MA, anything that project work you are doing, that is also called as a MA dissertation. Okay, most of we follow that is the cause that we call as a your dissertation. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Sriya, you also put some questions. Is hypothesis important to be framed for the model? Can we have hypothesis and not the model?
No, you remember one thing, model is different and your hypothesis is different. So you remember one thing, when you are writing hypothesis, I say it is not necessary that you need to formulate a hypothesis or write a hypothesis in your research work. Only concern is that most of the students, they are writing the hypothesis, but they are not testing it. Okay, they have no information in your analysis chapter. So my request is that if you are writing a hypothesis, you have to test it. You have to test it and you have to discuss it. Okay, the hypothesis that I have taken, so that is I accepted or rejected. Okay, so maybe so to test that hypothesis, you can use different econometrics tool. Okay, so to analyze, to accept or to reject that.
Okay, sir. Next, Minati put questions. What is the difference between a research problem and statement of the problem?
You see, this is, if you go for, generally, this is the same if you go for the problem that you want to explore. Generally, so because your statement of problem will, you give a idea that what is the problem that you want to explore. And that is possible through help of your research gap. So that you have to identify. Generally, the technical term in the research work, we use as a statement of problem. So from this, you take this problem and you formulate your research questions, your objective, your hypothesis, all these things.
Yes, sir. Madam Anupama put questions. In an exploratory research, how to choose and review the article?
This is if you go for, like you see, that most of the, if you go for, so explorative research is done by the, if not quantitative, that is qualitative. Generally, we have little information in hand. Okay, so you as a, if you go for, suppose I am working on Mankaria tribe. So I don't have whatever the literature existing on that, my self-knowledge, having gone through the literature, you as a researcher, you talk to the people, those who are working in this area. Suppose I'm working, many people are there, they're expert in the tribal. So I get the idea, please help me on this. Suppose Mankaria, any socio-economic information, any literature on that. Because very limited information you will get. Then, so in that sense, real sense, you will find some difficult, but in social science, you will find 100% some literature on some topic. So then after that, this is very explorative. This research meaning is that you want to explore more dimension, whenever you will go to the field. So you as a researcher, you have to keep in mind, you have to open up. Okay, whenever you will go to the field, you may get more information from that area. And whenever you understand, you just meeting at the people, you explore. So this is the idea of explorative research. So generally, after you go to the field, you develop the theory, you develop the hypothesis, you develop more dimensions on that.
Next, Khushbu Agrawala put some questions. how many objectives is ideally considered?
That I
Process
already
of selecting the sample.
answered. I
Yes,
have
sir.
already answered. So that is no hard and fast rule. That is your choice. But I say if you are working on 3-4 objectives, that is more than sufficient.
Process of selecting the sample, how to be?
Yeah, that is another lecture. Maybe in near future we will do also that and sampling technique. There are different. You say generally remember one thing. I always encourage students that you should use the probability sampling as it minimize your error, the biasness. So maybe in future we'll emphasis on lecture on this particularly on this dimension.
Yes, in addition, she also put about the question hour and schedule, whether question hour is for literate population and the schedule is for illiterate population when
No,
taking the data.
no, that is not. Yeah, I say the difference between questionnaire and schedule is that both have set of questions. Like I say, your father name, your mother name, your land holding, your occupation, your family members. You write set of questions. If you send the set of questions to the researcher, okay, so broadly now at the present during COVID time, most of you remember all the researchers send their mail to the Google form. You form that. Okay, so in that sense, and the respondent answer, so that is questionnaire. And if you go to the field and directly ask the respondent, that is schedule. But yes, that is true in terms of, you see, many limitations are there. In terms of questionnaire, so many people are not able to answer. The response rate is very less, very low. Okay, whereas the schedule you can clarify, you can doubt it. Okay, so that is no issue of the literacy and illiteracy issue is that. You can think on that on the basis of research.
Yes, sir. Mezabin, I wanted to know about the criteria for selection of sample size during the research.
Yeah, so maybe I think now if you go for the different criteria are there. I say as a student, there are thumb rules are there. There are different statistical tools are there. Different software are there. So they are determining your sample. Okay, so in that sense, so if you are commanding on statistical tool, you can with the help of statistical tool, so you can do the sample size. But if you are not commanding, I say this with this the own understanding by thumb rule, by guess, you can, if you are taking for quantitative research 300 plus or 250 plus, that is the appropriate size for the any statistical analysis. And if you are taking for this qualitative research, if you are taking 100 plus, that is also sufficient for that. Maybe in near future we'll plan one lecture on this sample design and all these things.
Yes, sir. Gayatri put question. Name of the software for qualitative data analysis.
That is already given, atlas.ti. Atlas.ti. Atlas.ti.
Yes. Other Akbal put some questions. How to frame the questionnaire for this study?
Yes, I will. I maybe in the next target is that maybe we'll give a lecture on questionnaire design. So maybe there are different tools are there. So maybe if time permit in near future, we will do that. Any other question in the for this? Can I read from the here?
Minati BC put the question. In the field of social science, whether research could be done on biographical aspects of person concerned.
What is in the field of research?
In the field of social science research, whether research could be done on the biographical aspect of person concerned.
Oh, yeah, you can do that. Many researchers are doing that. You can do this, no problem.
This was some questions, and I knew some questions have been put in the chat box. Suresh Kumar, how we write conceptual framework or theoretical framework?
You see that you suppose if you read literature, so on which area you are working, on what different theory that exists on that the concept that you are working. So if you go to the literature or understanding, then you can develop this. This is very, very essential. if your conceptual and theoretical understanding is not there in a paper or in a synopsis or research work, maybe you will miss many dimensions. Okay, so if you, my only request is that maybe, so this is a very important question in terms of you have to write this. If you are conceptual, many students do not write on this conceptual framework. Okay, on theoretical, on which this theory, on the theoretical background, on which this the paper that or the topic that you want to explore. What is the theory exists in the literature on this? Whether the theory is accept or reject or anything is changed. Okay, so what is the new dimension? Suppose I say there is a concept of suppose Lewis model in economics. So there is a shift from your from the agricultural sector to the industry. But how far this is relevant in the present context with your this concept of migrations or any dimension you want to explore? So you have to justify that, taking this idea on the theoretical, whatever theories exist, if you want to work on this any area.
Yes, sir. In addition, VTC also wanted to know whether statement of research problem is mandatory in biographical research.
I don't think so. You can know that is not. I think there is no need of going for the statement of problem, but you just provide a understanding on this why this importance. This is the importance that you have to explain.
Yes, sir. Sir, Alpha also raised a question: how to select literature when you just have a wide idea of topic one research? For a simple example, this is digital device. How to narrow it down?
You see, there is now in the last class, we have conducted a bibliometric analysis. Okay, how many of you have attended or not, I don't know. Okay, so you are the researcher, it is your duty that how can now you see our time is totally changed. Only one click you are able to download 100 articles. I have in this PPT, there are different sources are there. You talk about Gesture, you talk about Google Scholar, you talk about other many sources are there through which you can download. But you have to determine many areas there. So you are the researcher. First duty is that please download the materials on related to your research work, and then go to one by one and get idea. Do one thing. You find one article from your topic. Okay, on the research topic. So just immediately you before go to the literature, you just go to the bibliography or reference of that article. You find that article is very good on your topic. So you just go to the reference and whatever the article there, you just try to search that article and download and go through it. Again and again, you can just increase your volume on this article. If you go second article, third article on that, you just go ahead. You have to do it beforehand.
Yes, sir. Khushbu asked questions: how to answer the query, why I am interested in the topic, and how to write conceptual framework.
You see, that is, I say, most of the cases, if you are the researcher, you have to ask this question that suppose I am working on this area. Suppose I am giving one example. I am working on tribes. You just imagine. So why? Now many studies are there in tribes. So what new you are working on this? So I ask myself, I just decide that working on this, if you go for the tribes, so both state government and the central government had to spend huge amount for the development of tribes. Okay, for the benefit of that. But yet, if you go for, so in terms of socioeconomic conditions, in terms of literacy, in terms of occupation, in terms of vulnerability, so they are the marginalized groups. So maybe on which aspect you want to explore. Suppose I'm working on Forest Rights Act. I'm working on with specific to that. You just provide of this, that why, on which parameter I want to work. So you every time, you that questions will provide you your research gap from the literature. So you have to, if you read the conceptual framework, if you read the many books, many articles on that, so that you can identify maybe these people have not discussed these things, so I want to explore this thing. That you have to keep in mind.
Yes, sir. Mehajabin wanted to know, is it necessary to index citation in introduction part?
100%. 100% in the introductions. Remember one thing. Yes, if you are if you provide some citation in the introduction, okay, so that will give good weightage to your understanding, your writing, your on these things. So it is, I think it should. Many times, not introduction. Many people are also giving in conclusion also citation, in discussions also giving citations.
Sachin Pandey requested. Sachin Pandey requested to take a session on how to write article next time. So that will be taken care of. And next, Animes goes, what is the difference between framework and model, which researcher often mention in research objective?
No, framework, when you say, suppose if you go for model which is specific, if you go for framework in the sense that, okay, so this is my research framework, this is a general, like a framework in the sense, suppose I will follow the framework of inductive research. The framework I will follow this the probability sampling in terms of sample design, in terms of your research. But if you go for models, okay, so models with respect to your hypothesis, suppose you use regression model, you use Tobit model, or you use your chi-square test, or you use t-test. Okay, so anything that you use for your hypothesis testing or your any research question that you want to pose. So that is the difference of model. So broadly, if you go for, if you go for all these, the model that you are using in case of your framework, your tools, that you mention everything on that. So secondary, mostly time they use these things.
Yes. Minati also desired to know, can you please explain, sir, what is the meaning of the research gap once again?
Okay, research gap. Okay, please try. This is very important. I am giving one example. You just imagine, suppose Minati has done a research on child labor. Then I want to do a research on child labor. Now, so if I will do the same work, now it is useless because repetition of the work. If I go to the literature already, the causes of child labor is developed, that poverty, the Minati has done a research, that poverty is the cause of child labor. That is already there. So what is the new if I will do now? If I will do the same result, if I will do this poverty same study without going to literature, so I will do study that poverty is the cause of child labor. So now you have to go on to the literature. You just go to the literature, and in literature you find, okay, poverty is the cause. Besides poverty, maybe other researchers have not discussed on the qualification or the educational qualification of mother, educational qualification of the this father, or the occupation of the mother, or occupation of the mother, then number of children, siblings in the family, okay, or the distance from the schools. So many dimensions are there which is not taken into account in case of that is role for child labor. Now you say that, okay, literature says the poverty is the cause of child labor, but my study is focusing on this. These are the parameters, these are the variables that I want to take into account, and these are my research gaps. So they have, the author have not emphasis on the educational qualification of parents, the distance from the school, or the sibling, number of siblings. So many dimensions. So this is your addition to this. That we call as a research gap. Any topic you can just imagine. So you will find many example on this.
This is, sir, all about the questions raised by our research scholar and academicians who were with us. And I request here, any of you, if you wanted to ask directly, you can now unmute, share your doubts or any questions or any curiosity about these matters. Please, friends, raise your direct question, if any.
Remember, anyone, if you want any, just raise your hand, and just remember one thing. If for your PhD viva, if you are appearing, please, you do one thing. whatever the format that I have given, you just in that format, you just try to write your research proposal. And remember one thing, when you are coming to the PhD proposal for the PhD interview in physical mode, so you will find, remember, common questions. Just introduce yourself, tell something about research proposal, what is your research gap, what is your objective, what is how you will proceed. If you are not answering that you have to very clear. If you are any discipline, I'm talking about in my center or in everywhere. If that is not true, if you are not coming that comfortable, maybe other dimension that we will ask, that you tell me, suppose this is the topic, tell me 5 authors or 5 articles that you read in that area. This is the second option that people will ask you questions. Also, if you go for in this third, if you go for, suppose the author, tell me the books. Or otherwise, many people ask, you have written 2 articles on this area, 3 articles. So what is their stance? What is their main central theme that you have to answer? And this basic question, don't be confused. If you do not know, tell sorry that we do not know. But don't be make it unnecessary. I remember many people are, suppose you are asking questions 1, the answer is giving 3, 4. So this is not the real sense. It is not at all very useful. So you have to keep in mind if you are coming for this. Yeah.
Anybody please?
Yes, that is not at all. You can use review from journals or articles, which is not generally you see as for the now UGC guideline. So either I
Sir.
think, yeah.
Sir, I am Shantanu.
Yeah, Shantanu, tell.
Sir, I am Shantanu. Sir, thank you so much for a very interactive session. First of all, this is the first time I'm attending your class. And thank you so much. I am also a working professional doing PhD. So I am working on my thesis. Still I have 5-6 months to submit, but we need to submit in our place. We used to call synopsis, no pre-submission 3 months before of that. So if you kindly give some ideas that we have guidelines of 10 pages, then there will be all this as it is a research proposal, but there must be an additional point where we can have a little descriptive kind of analysis, conclusion, and the findings. That's all.
Minimum one thing, please. I understand, Shantanu, I understand your question. If you are presenting pre-submission, Shantanu, you do one thing. You just clearly tell to this audience or your expert that, okay, this is my problem, this is my objective, this is my hypothesis, but your more emphasis should be reflected, or you give more weightage, more time, your objective 1, your findings, and their interpretations, their discussions. Objective 2, their findings, discussions. Objective 3, discussions. Then your policy implications. This much you have to provide in case of if you are submitting, because your idea is that you are in pre-submissions, your result is more important than whatever you think in the proposal or synopsis. What is your findings on that? People want that. So you have to justify. Suppose you give 15 minutes all this, your synopsis, and your 45 minutes you give your broad findings. That is very, very essential.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Shantanu.
Yeah, no.
You
Thank
very
you
clear on
so much, sir. Okay, yes. So the point is, thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Any of other participants? Please, if you have any query, please directly say.
Sir, I have a question. There is a very interactive and good session. We have gained so many knowledge. So my query is, we have a chosen objective which is not available literature in the context of India level, but so many literatures articles are there and according to international literature articles. So my query is, how to, this is the international articles, there is secondary data. So I have, on this objective, I have do primary data collection. So how to choose or how to frame variables, data or methodology?
Yeah,
There is a,
remember one thing. Yeah, I understand. So remember, if you go for this is really many research in social science are there. So you do not find some literature in Indian case. So that is the you this is a good research. This is the research gap.
yes,
So
sir,
you
yes,
in
sir.
that sense, to remember one thing. So taking your understanding whatever the international literature is available. So you want to apply in case of India. So with the primary data. So you so maybe so what objective you just pick one objective with that, and then so you have to develop how you will proceed. Suppose I say I want to find out whatever the objective is. So from that objective, how different variable I will identify from the field. So that you as a researcher, you have to keep in mind. You 100% you can do it. That is not issue. But thing is that whatever the literature, how you will supplement or justify that the findings from the field, that you have to very clear on that. Sufficient understanding, with proper citations from the international level. If suppose national level is not available, that you can go ahead.
So actually problem is their articles, so many secondary data are there. So I want to do research on primary data or on this objective,
Yeah.
but
Then
I have to frame, difficulty to frame variables, data.
no. You
And
easily how suppose I am giving example. Suppose I say if you identify your objective, because if you identify your objective, suppose I say from the literature I identify objective that so there is a to find out what is the occupation pattern of Makaria tribe in Odisha. Suppose in the foreign literature I found. Okay, I want to do suppose another tribe from this. So now, so it is you as a researcher. So when I say that this Makaria tribe there is no literature, so I found from the other country on this objective I want to fulfill in the field. Now you have to ask. Suppose when I say the occupational pattern. So you are the researcher. You have to define here yourself that what do you mean by occupation. So when I say occupation, that means whether they are working in the agriculture. So you have to ask yourself whether they are working in the laborer, whether working there as the occupation, different occupation, they are collecting from the forest produce from the jungle, or they are collecting this Manrega work, or they are in the government job. So you as a researcher, so you have to on this objective that you want to field survey in the India or in your study area. This you have to justify first, and also you have to just satisfy or you have to explain to your supervisor and your RSC member that okay sir, this study and on this parameter I want to study this objective. If you satisfy that, if you fulfill that, then you can go ahead. That is not issue. That means I hope you are missing in terms of developing this the indicator variables and the concept. You are missing
yes,
on that.
yes,
Yeah,
sir,
I
yes, sir.
understand. Yeah.
Particularly, I am economics background, so methodology and variables, choosing methodology and variables is difficult.
No. You can do it. That is not at all. It is very easy. You can do it. Use this. Maybe if you can just write on your topic, and I will give the answer.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, sir. I will mail you personally.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir.
Sir, here Suresh is also asked a question. Is there any difference between synopsis and proposal?
No. Proposal. This is the generally I say same like I say we use many times in our time we use as a synopsis. We call as a research proposal. Okay, so more broadly that needs for the academic. Some extent you will find the synopsis broadly we use in the academic world. That is suppose your MPhil, MA degree, MPhil degree, PhD degree, but proposal in case of you can use research proposal, you can say for the funding I define na, so funding another purpose. but overall both are same.
Okay, friends, many of you write about the PPT and the recordings of the program. You can get it in the WhatsApp group, but the link of the WhatsApp group already shared in this chat box. So most of you are joined in this chat box. This is Boga Education event. This chat box, through chat box, you can join the link. And the PPT as well as the recording will be available in the WhatsApp, so you can access that one. And besides, as per the demand and the request of some of our friends, already this is in our mindset, and in the future endeavor we will think of this kind of WhatsApp once again for enrichment to you all. Now, I request Professor Chittaranjan sir. He is with us, and he have already enriched about these activities with all the participants. Sir will be just give some idea and a brief about the discussion and the entire participants.
One announcement.
Sir.
Please just join this WhatsApp group. Whatever the material that I have, so or any clarifications, any questions, I will share the documents. And if you have any doubt, please let me know in this WhatsApp group. Okay, so develop a network. Only motive is that of giving this lecture, that the problem that I face in my life, at least you should not face. Okay, so this is very, very concern. Many times I say that most of the researchers, not here, many here in JNU itself. So you will find they're facing lots of problem in terms of writing research proposal. So please, any time, any help, not on this research proposal, anything, whatever way, I will try my best to help in terms of books, in terms of material, or anything that I can provide. Okay, you just join this WhatsApp group. Maybe in the future we are planning of doing different programs in physical mode also, in any other modes also. So please, we'll take care of these things in terms of questionnaire design, maybe on sampling. We'll do that in near future. Very soon we'll do that. We'll keep in touch. Yes, Chitawai.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, anybody? Anybody wanted to say anything?
Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, Kusumo bolo.
Yes, sir. Can I reach you personally over there in the WhatsApp, sir? Because I have read your PPW article yesterday and my work is on the same topic in informal sector. And maybe in the future, I wish to work with you.
100%, 100%, 100% we are ready to do that. No problem.
Sir.
Any help, I am ready to do that. Whatever the time permit, I will do. No one.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Subham has given, sir, please answer my question. Subham, please just unmute yourself and speak. Who is Subham? Subham, if you have any question, please unmute yourself and ask me. Mausim Kara, please unmute yourself.
गुड आफ्टरनून सर.
Yeah, tell. Yeah.
सर आपका मोबाइल नंबर सर जीबी पंत इल्यूमिनाई मीट में है क्या? इल्यूमिनाई जो ग्रुप है.
हाँ.
यस सर, मैं गोविंद अल्लाह पंत से पीएचडी कर रहा हूँ सर.
ओके,
हम लोग जी सर, तो आपका लेक्चर बहुत अच्छा रहा सर. क्लियरिटी सर काफी है. अगर कोई दिक्कत होगा सर तो मैं व्हाट्सएप नंबर से टच में रहूंगा.
ओके, थैंक
यू. थैंक्स सर.
Hello, good afternoon, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, my one question, sir. Sir, what is the best review literature so that we can maximum review literature in less time?
I think what if you go for, you just imagine that now if you go for, I hope if you have attended last bibliometric analysis, okay, or many software, many different sources are there through which you can got this review literature related to your article, such work. So you do one thing. So my request is that whatever the established, not peer review, good journal, I say good journal. So you just go through this gesture or any software, the internet domain, and then just to download one article, and from the reference you download another article, from another reference you download article. And if you go for review of literature, I say that at least 50 good articles, go through it on different aspects, and you from that you on with maybe if you go for 2025 and with your understanding, with in-test citations, not as a separate chapter, so that will be good for that.
Thank you so much, sir. It is very informative session, sir.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Hello,
Sita
sir.
bhai, yeah.
Hello, sir. My name is Deba. I am doing PhD. Sir, I have a doubt that throughout my work, I am reading one or the article or newspaper, whatever I am reading, everything is important for me, So I can write everything as my literature review. I can quote that. If it is
Yeah.
not a peer-reviewed journal also.
Yes, you can cite, that is no hard understood, but it is suggested that most of the cases, if you find good journals, good articles, so you can do that. Generally, nowadays, after this UGC care, all these things, now people encourage that peer reviewed and the UGC care list. So you can do this. That is not the issue. You can do, but you just consult to your supervisor and your RSC member, and then go ahead.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sita bhai.
The interest of participants is quite motivating for all of us. So it seems that after 2.5 hours of discourse, they are still not willing to leave. Such is the interest. Thank you, participants. So I think the workshop is a great success, and Professor Minaketan deserves all our appreciation for this. So many questions are still remaining, and some questions will crop up while you do it practically. So we are available. Some of you are asking the WhatsApp number or the contact number. So these are readily available in our groups, and we are quite happy that our next generation is quite serious of quality research.
Good.
That is a great sign of encouragement for all of us. Dear friends, if we stay connected, many things can be done. And the best support what we can do is mutual support. So you are taking interest, that is motivating us. And you are having some questions. If we are of any use, we are always available for you. So my sincere suggestion to the participants who are still present, that this will be uploaded to YouTube, this recording. And there are some recordings which have already been uploaded to YouTube. So please be subscriber of our YouTube channel, which will be shared by Pradipta Bhai in our Moga Shiksha events group. So please subscribe that. Then you also find some useful videos, recordings for you. Most of them have already been delivered by Professor Minaketan Behera. So I think at least 5-6 long videos of our previous workshops are available in our website. So you can explore all those things: how to write proposal, how to write synopsis, how to structure your research, how to review literature. These things are also available. So it is a wonderful experience that the students from most parts of our country are present here. So this is Moga Shiksha Parishad. We need cooperation of all. Don't worry that you will not be overburdened, that we will not ask you for any undue favor. Only thing that we should stay connected and we should reinforce our mutual support to one another. That is my final statement. It is now over to Pradipta Bhai, but not before giving a huge applause to Professor Minaketan and all of you. Thank you all.
Why my only intention is that since you are my strength, I happy that you just look at it. 700 registrations are there, so this motivate me to take this lecture. So you are my strength. I'm really happy that at least if I can contribute something for your benefit, so I will be more happy than you. So with this intention, I am doing this. Maybe in near future, we also conduct different programs on the demand, that sampling, on the questionnaire design or data analysis or anything. So maybe, so we'll do that. So because I need your support in the sense that you have to, because of you, I'm giving this lecture. So your participation should be there. Okay, so with this, any help in near future in terms of your materials, in terms of your any documents or any help in terms, so I will try my best to answer that. So I think I'm really happy that if you go for, I think all these 28 states, people are participating in the training program. This motivate, really, I am really happy that how can, if you go for Kerala to Kanyakumari to Jammu, many people are so joining this program. So in real sense, it motivate me to move ahead. So I think I should stop here now. Pradipta bhai.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor Chittaranjan sir, who is the inspiration behind the entire program. Now we listen from our participant for whom this program was designed and who are the inspiration of the entire continuity of 2.5 hours. So let two participants, one from